Hello everybody, it's Maria back to you again, and today I thought I would tell you the sewing story of Nancy May. Thanks so much to everybody who came on and said they wanted to hear it after my last live. So this is the Cork version of Nancy May. A long time ago in Cork City, in the 1940s, when the world was recovering from another crisis, there was a lady living in Gerald Griffin Street, and her name was Nancy May. In those days, the woman that delivered the babies was also the woman that saw the souls out into heaven. She was the midwife, and Nancy May was known for her strong, gentle hands and her calm ways, and the women of Cork loved her and depended on her in their most important times. Nancy May had a little shawl that she kept on a chair next to her door, next to her medicine bag. And one night, in the middle of the night, there was an urgent knocking on the door. "Who is it now?" said Nancy May. "Who is calling at this hour of the night?" And silently she went through all of the children that were due to be delivered. Is it the O'Connell child? Is it the O'Sullivan child? Is it the Murphy child? She thought to herself. And then she said, "No, it can't be any of those children. Nobody due for the next week or two." With these thoughts running through her head, she opened the door. And as the old people in Cork would say, she got a stoppage. For there outside the door was the most beautiful man she had ever seen. He was at least 6 foot tall. He looked as if he had been carved out of marble. He had the most beautiful blue eyes and ink dark hair. "Nancy May, come now, please, for the woman is in need of you," he said, and he put his hand into her. She caught hold of his hand and stepped outside her little cottage on Gerald Griffin Street, hearing the click of the door behind her. That's when she noticed. She noticed how quiet it was. Not a creature stirring. And the moon so close that she could almost touch it. She saw that he had 2 horses waiting next to a most perfect wagon. Being a carpenter's daughter, as she sat into the wagon, she noticed that there wasn't a screw or a join on display. It looked as if it had been carved from one piece of wood. And the horses, they stood in perfect unison, both milk white, as perfect as the moon herself. They took off down Gerald Griffin Street, and she noticed that the wheels made no sound on the cobblestones of Cork. It felt as if they were gliding along. And then they turned left up Sun Valley Drive, up towards where Knocknaheeny is now. And then turning right, they started going towards the Black Stone Bridge. Oh, the people of Cork will tell you not to be out after dark near the Black Stone Bridge at this time of the year, when the veil thins and the realms meet. As they came towards the Blackstone Bridge, he started to giddy up the horse. "Come on, horse!" And the horse went faster and faster and faster until Nancy May put up her hands, thinking they were about to crash. When she took her hands down, they were inside the little mound of the Blackstone Bridge, inside the fairy hill. And here she noticed that this man was not unusual. For every creature here, Every man, woman and child, one was as beautiful as the other. And then she heard it, the cries of the woman. She jumped down from the carriage and found the woman. 3 times that night she turned the baby in the belly of the woman. 3 times she prayed that she would not lose this soul. And finally, as dawn broke, the child came into the world. Nancy May cleaned the child, kissed it, as was her custom, swaddled it in the clothes, and gave it to the mother, like the hundreds of births she'd attended before. It was then the beautiful man appeared again. "Oh, Nancy May," he said, "thank you for your skill this night. But now I'll give you some advice. Say nothing of what you have seen here. Take nothing except what was given to you. And when you leave this place, don't open your mouth to anybody about what you have seen." "All right," she said, "and am I to know who you are?" "It's better that you don't know," he said. And with that he put out his hand again, and she took it and mounted the carriage. As they were leaving, she noticed that these people were coming back. Dawn was breaking, and the people were coming back from the night where they had been abroad in Cork City. As they came in, she noticed they were dipping their fingers in a kind of a font. And being a good Christian woman, her hand automatically went out and her fingers went into the font. She then realised she couldn't bless herself with this water, and she watched what they did, and they touched it to their eyes. So she thought to herself, "That's what I'll do. I'll touch it to my eye too." So she put it on her eye and then said, "Well, that did nothing at all." Oh, it was a beautiful morning breaking over Cork City, a lovely crisp October morning, and the birds were singing. And when she got back to her cottage, she felt as if she'd had a great night's sleep. She was so full of energy. She opened the door and straight away she went out into the back garden, talking to her chickens, as was her way, encouraging them to give her an egg. But this morning there was 2 eggs waiting, and the goat gave so much milk that she was able to sell some to her neighbours. And the beautiful herbs, they were so fat and fresh. Oh, she didn't think she'd ever tasted anything as nice as it. So she plucked some of the herbs, she scrambled eggs, and she had the nicest omelette ever. And then she looked at the purse that the man had given her. It was so well crafted, not a seam in it, and the softest leather she'd ever felt. Then she looked inside and saw the gold coins and the silver coins. She wouldn't have to leave the house for a while. But you know, and I know, how it is to be stuck in your house. After a while she thought, I'll have to go into Cork and meet the lovely people. So she took some of the coins and she thought to herself, I'll buy a beautiful red cow if there's one available. Now, for all my Corkonian friends, do you know the Colkay and TK Maxx? Well, if you stand at the door of TK Maxx and look across the road, you'll see a kind of a spooky, dark place, a kind of a neglected corner. They say it's haunted, and they say this is the day that it started. That used to be the old marketplace that the farmers would bring up their cattle and their sheep and their chickens and their geese to chat and to sell, to spit in the hand and make the bargains. And this day, Nancy May went in and saw the most beautiful red cow. It seemed she was smiling. Nancy May checked her out from the tip of her nose to the tip of her tail, and then leaned over her back to see how strong she was. She was just thinking that she might buy that lovely little cow to provide her with milk, when didn't she see the woman who'd given birth? "Oh my God, girl, and are you out of the bed?" she said. The woman looked at her in fright and then started to move out onto the cold hay itself. Nancy May, who was brought up with great manners, came after her. "Excuse me, girl," she said, "and are you out of the bed? And how's your bonny baby?" And the woman said, "Can you see me?" And Nancy May said, "Of course, girl. Of course I can see you. Sure, aren't I talking to you?" The people of Cork said that that was the moment Nancy May had begun talking to herself. The woman came up in front of Nancy May and said, "Did you take anything? Did you take anything that you weren't given permission to take?" "Indeed, and I did not," said Nancy May, being as honest as the day was long. "And did you touch anything?" said the woman. "No," said Nancy May. And then she said, "Oh no, 1 minute," she said, "I did stick my fingers into the font, and then like everybody else was doing, I touched my eye." "Both eyes," said the woman. "No," she said, "just this eye, just this one." The woman put up the palm of her hand, and it was the last thing that Nancy May ever saw out of that eye. The people of Cork said that she put her hand to her face and the blood poured down her hands, dripping onto the ground. Nancy May soon followed. The good people of Cork picked her up and brought her to the North Infirmary. They did their best for her. They patched her eye, and over time a skin grew down across it. Nancy May took to wearing her hair over her eye, so as not to be a finger point. But nobody wanted the woman with the shaky hand to help deliver their babies, or to put their hands on or her hand on their backs in their great time of grief when they had lost somebody. And yet, the women of Cork never forgot how kind she was when she could be kind. There was always a bowl of soup and a sandwich waiting for Nancy May, particularly at this time of year in October, when the veil's thin. And that's my story of Nancy May. And I'm just wondering now if any of you have any traditions or old stories from Cork or from wherever you're dialing in. Can you say hello so that I can see who's there? There's Liz Weir. Thank you so much, Liz. I was just on in virtual Antrim, and Liz is amazing. She runs this fantastic session every week and I really love going, and it was brilliant to be there tonight. Mwah! Thank you, Liz. Lovely that you've dialed in. And I can see Alwyn there. How are you? Great to see you. Hiya, Darren. Lovely to see you, my friend. Darren is a brilliant photographer, you know, so I have to go out sometime, Darren, and have a photograph and tell a story from one of the lovely Cork places. Maybe the Blackstone Bridge where this story takes place. That would be lovely, you know. So it's lovely to see everybody. This is the first of my lives, you know, as promised. So I hope you enjoyed the story. If you have any little traditions of Cork, I'd love them. So if you're seeing this now in real time, or if you're seeing this later, please leave messages so that we can keep the old traditions and the old stories alive. How lovely to see you. Mwah. And I'll talk to you soon.